Hello everybody, welcome to the new moon video and report. I'm going to give you your one card reading for your sign at the end of the video, but first I'm going to delve into the astrology and the tarot for this new moon in Libra. So we're looking at October 16th at 3:31 p.m. Eastern. And so when I cast the chart, I place it as if it's in New York City, but it can be anywhere in the Eastern time zone, which gives it an Aquarius rising. So very airy new moon. We have the sun, the moon in Libra, we have the North Node in Gemini, and we have an Aquarius rising. So air is about communication, ideas. People think Libra is about balance, but it's not really. Balance means the scale. It doesn't mean that Libras balance everything. They're trying to, but that's their lesson. They're always on the scale. They're always weighing things. It doesn't mean that they are the one who is weighted and knows everything where it should fit. That's what they're going towards. Some Libras, as they get better at weighing and deciding and making fair decisions, then there will just be more and harder or more complicated things that come to the scales for them to weigh. It's Lady Justice. She stands there with her sword of justice or of light. She has her eyes closed, or she's blindfolded usually, and she's holding the scales. And it's not really for her to say, it's some other court. Is it a court of law? Is it a court of karma? Who is deciding what is just? Who is deciding what is fair? And whenever we're in the Libra planets, especially on a new moon, when it's doubly emphasized, people are very concerned about weighing things. They're very concerned about what is fair. So you often see a lot of people quite upset that things are not fair during a Libra period. We also see opposing that is Mars in Aries, and Mars is retrograde. So Mars retrograde is not in its strongest position. So when you have the desire to please and weigh, and the underdog is always a big thing with Libra as well, rooting for the underdog because that's not fair that they're the underdog. And then you get Mars and Aries, as I mentioned before earlier with the full moon report 2 weeks ago. A lot of frustration with Mars and Aries retrograde because it's like it's repressed. Also, the day that we have 3 days before our new moon, we have Mercury going retrograde in Scorpio. So again, Mercury retrograde is gonna, typically they say slow down communication, screw up your computer, don't sign any documents, don't commit to anything on paper because you might have missed a detail, you might not be saying it clearly, you might not have read the right fine print. Yes, that's classic advice. It's sometimes true. I hear examples that are directly exactly that. But more often than not, Mercury retrograde is just making you introspect. You don't really want to speak necessarily about, certainly in Scorpio too, you don't want to speak about frivolous stuff. We're seeing a lot of aggression online, I find. A lot of people are starting to tell me they're just going to they're not going to bother with Facebook at all or deal with it. I also have been feeling like I just want to lay low from Facebook because even the most innocent comments that you think you're making, people are getting so mad. And this is just one way that, Mars retrograde in Aries can play out as passive-aggressive attacking behavior on social media platforms. It can also be passive-aggressive anything, right? Because Mars is frustrated in that spot. It's not direct. So it comes out indirectly like, oh, well, I thought you were this kind of person, but I guess you're not. It's like, okay. Stuff like that. Gaslighting is another thing that could be coming under Mars retrograde with all of the Libra planets too. We want things to sound nice and fair and beautiful, but at the same time we're not being direct with you, so that could set the stage for gaslighting. We also have, along with Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, and Mercury in Scorpio wants to get to the bottom of things, wants the truth, capital T. It's like Scorpio's like, I don't care how ugly it is, just tell me the truth. I'll get to the bottom of this. And now Mercury is there helping us talk about things more deeply from a stronger point of view, but also sometimes again like volatile or revengeful with Mercury and Scorpio. Jealous, possessive with Mercury and Scorpio. And it's retrograde. So again, deep thoughts, deep feelings, difficulty saying them, or it's so deep, or it's so raw, or it's so truthful that it's like, it's offensive to some people. So we have a grind right now of like, who am I talking to? On what level am I talking to you? Can I be real with you or not? You know, there's a lot of that. And like, are you being real? And if you are, is it aggressive or is it just being real? Or are you being authentic in a nice way? Okay, but that's too nice. Are they, everybody's like, not everybody, but there's a lot of sort of casting doubt, casting suspicion, not sure who you're talking to, not sure on what level to talk to people. And then, you know, and then this passive aggressive undertone, or people withholding because of the retrograding feeling. Now, we also have Neptune making a trine to this Mercury. That can give a bit of a glow or a glamour to the Scorpio. So let's say somebody had Neptune in Pisces trine Mercury and Scorpio in their chart as a person, instead of like general in the skies for everybody. Say that person would probably be quite intuitive and creative in some way. And they would know how to give almost a mystical feeling to what they're saying. So this could be somebody who's like a poet, a songwriter, or an artist who knows how to interpret emotion well and put it out there in a nice way for us. Could even be quite a spiritual expression or way of speaking or being. The other thing that Neptune with Mercury and Scorpio could be, I mean, it could also be somebody that really knows how to, because of that subtlety and emotion and poetry, they could be the ultimate gaslighter. Like, that's just being, you know, the cynical side of me as well, because we're seeing so much of it. But it's in the air. Whoever might be spinning with Neptune and Mercury and Scorpio might be so smooth. You know, it might, like, sort of like the lie feels really good kind of thing. Now, of course, we have to add to the mix of this opposition of Mars, Sun, and Moon. Now we add what we've been dealing with all year, this punch of Capricorn planets that squares off with all of it. So you have Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in Capricorn. This is what we're dealing with all year, this long transit of challenge to authority, challenge to government, challenge to democracy, challenge to patriarchy. This is all year, okay? Saturn changes to Aquarius in December, so we're almost done this phase where it's this intense. Doesn't mean it's gone, because Pluto is still there and Jupiter's still there a little while longer. But we're in the home stretch of the three planets making it so intense. But right now they're squaring off with Mars and Aries retrograde, and they're opposing Sun and Moon in Libra. So you have, when you've got these opposition times, of cardinal signs, things tend to move forward. There tends to be an episode or an action in your life or in the world that you can trace, that's marked, that's, you know, turning points or stimulation points. If we see it in somebody's personal chart, that a bunch of cardinal planets are squaring off, we always expect that there's a life change. If it's a personal chart, we're going to tell you you're going to either move out, move on, meet somebody, quit your job, fall in love, find a new apartment, buy a car, something breaks down, all of the above, because it activates all of the areas of your life when there's this big square. So we can expect this new moon for people to be making some big changes. We can expect some announcements. We can expect to see stuff on the global stage, you know, or the political stage that changes the game yet again. The thing is, right now, like this year, when I make these videos and predict stuff like this, people are sort of like, yeah, and how is that different exactly? The whole year has been full of like flip-flop, change, more news, more drama. We're sadly very used to chaos now, aren't we? We're looking for something else than just constant chaos. We would like things to be resolved or settled in some way. But the thing is, we're going into Saturn and Aquarius, and we're going into a new chapter of history. And so our old structures and forms are breaking apart, and it's not going to be terribly stable. We're innovating and pioneering a new world. And you could say that about any time if you want to, yes, on some level. But Saturn in Aquarius is really the start of the air age, which is going to last 200 years. We've been in an earth age for 200 years. So this is why, you know, I was listening to an astrology conference from Astrology University, and several astrologers, noted astrologers, were talking about the air age that we're coming into. So this isn't just your little phase of a year or two. This is really a departure into a new world. And none of us knows what that's going to look like exactly. So these Capricorn planets, this cluster in 2020, it came vis-a-vis a pandemic. It's going to come vis-a-vis, you know, challenges, obviously, to government, democracy, and patriarchy. We're seeing that everywhere. We have to really think what we want this new world to look like, and how we can be a little more progressive and inclusive, because Aquarius is all about progressive and inclusive. And if we're not, then we're going to be challenged on it. So I'm bringing all this up because when you've got planets squaring off like they do at this new moon, we're going to see more of that challenge. You're going to see it on the news, and, you know, challenges to Trump again, challenges to Trudeau, challenges, you know, to other governments across the world, challenges in companies, but you might also feel it yourself, that you're being called to action. You're being called to change your life yet again, called to adapt, to break down some old traditional ideas that you've got going on in your life, and lighten things up to be more inclusive and more progressive. And that, in a nutshell, is our new moon energy. So now let's look at what the tarot has to offer us for this cycle. I'm happy I decided to do these reports, to use both astrology and tarot, because a lot of the time I find people can be confused about which thing they should use. Which do we go to for answers? As you can see, astrology gives us a beautiful archetypal portrait of who's playing, who's on the chessboard, how are they interacting with each other. It gives you like a deeper tone to and it gives you a time frame, you know, which tarot can, but it's a little different. And as you can probably tell when you watch these reports, the tarot starts to go into much more sort of minutia and detail and more precise timing than the astrology. But it zones in on the detail, and the astrology gives them a bigger picture a lot of the time. So let's see what the cards have to say for this new moon. I'm going to do 9 cards like usual, and then I will pull a card for each person's sign. October 16th, 3:31. I was almost hoping it would be at 3:33, but cards flying out of the deck. So our first card then that flew out of the deck, literally, airborne, is a Libra card. Look at that. We've seen this card come up a lot lately, haven't we? So remember what I've said. 4 of Swords is all about laying down your swords. It's a truce. You see at the bottom it says truce. Lay down your swords, stop and rest, stop and talk things through. It's also, if you can see the green color, it's all about coming from your heart, not just your head. If you look at the patterns, the wings, she calls them, all around this, all around the swords in the green. It's all blue and yellow, and it looks a bit like chaotic, doesn't it? So it almost feels like static, or, you know, it could be, if it were people, it could be just way too many people, way too many things, too many electronic devices, too many people talking. And then you create this sacred space with the green, and the green is closer to the heart chakra. You create this space in the green, and you lay down your swords in the middle of a lotus flower that's white. So you try to get into this space of pure thoughts, pure communication, and you talk from the heart. So if you can think of anybody, this can be a card of resolving conflicts, if you have any, making amends, bringing up and saying you're sorry, checking in with people. How do you feel about this? Are we still good? Do we need to make any adjustments? And sometimes this card can be also about reaching out to your social network, which could be anything business-wise, but let's just stick with personal and say this could be like reach out to a friend, have a video call. If you're thinking of somebody, write to them, call them. Jupiter in Libra is highly social. It's also highly creative, so this can also represent making a sacred space to do your creative work. So take time out. Take time out and talk. All right, our next card, I didn't plan this, it's the Justice card, which is the Libra. So there you have her, Lady Justice, weighing the spheres, weighing with her scale on tippy toes. So she is in balance, hanging onto her sword with the Vesica Pisces looking. Oh no, it's not the, is it the Vesica Pisces? There's like two curves of the sword and the spheres, which looks like a Pisces symbol upside down to me. So this can mean legal matters, contracts, things that need to be official, things that need to be signed or written that are official. You might need to create a binding agreement. You might need to be careful of the ones you're signing. You might be making something that you have talked about formalized, whether that's a commitment in a relationship, can be marriage sometimes. Sometimes this can be a divorce card too. All this says is you're making it legal, you're making it official. Otherwise, if there's no paperwork in your life, it can mean that you are arriving at a decision, a balanced decision. So if you know that your mind is calm and clean and clear as this lady, and cool, and you have weighed things long enough and you are ready to decide, then that could be the card for you too. Our next card here is Queen of Wands. Now, she's come up a lot in the last little while with readings too. She is very powerful and dominant, and she's not going to take any crap from anybody. She's got the head of this leopard in her hand. I mean, we all know how hard it is to control a cat, and she's got the head in its hand like, you're mine. So you have to ask yourself, you know, again, is this somebody who has great leadership and power in a good way, using it for good, or is this somebody who's domineering, too much, too controlling, and maybe you have to deal with her? But she is formidable. As I mentioned in another reading, you know, if she's on your side, hallelujah. If she's against you, Lord help you. Our next card is Ten of Wands. So a lot of people might be feeling oppressed. I think that's probably a fair thing to say about lots of people who are feeling either oppressed by the quarantines, oppressed by, you know, their circumstances, if you're struggling financially or with your health. It's a sense of Saturn and Sagittarius, your freedom has been taken away, or your freedom is suppressed. And you can see all the fire that's created from this sort of these iron wands that are just clamping down on everything. So if you're in a situation that things have just come to that point where you feel completely, you know, disheveled and like there's nowhere for you to go, you feel oppressed, it's time to get out of that situation. It's probably was time a long time ago, but now this is your warning card, you know? Often people are very tired and burnt out when this card arrives because they weren't able, or they didn't hear the signs to get out sooner from a situation, and now it's gotten to this point where you're pretty beaten down. Like, often I see this card in conjunction with, you know, back problems, money problems. And so it's tough because it's going to take it's going to take time and work to get out of your situation. It's going to take some outside help. But then we have our Six of Wands. Lots of fire coming up here. Air and fire. So the Six of Wands is a victory card. Jupiter and Leo. This would be the antidote, you know, to the oppression. Expressing yourself. Putting yourself first. Saying, hey, I count. This is me. This is what I do. This is what I want to say. I'm going to sing right now if I want to. Kind of card, you know. I'm going to dress how I want. I'm going to express myself. I'm going to shine. Jupiter and Leo is going to shine. That's one way to get out of that oppression feeling, because the oppression card's so heavy. And maybe if you've been feeling domineered by the Queen of Wands in any way, then you need to say, hey, you know, I'm here too. I count too. I have needs and wants too. So oppression card isn't as heavy here to me, because it looks more like a situation where we're pulling out of a dynamic that was oppressive to us, because I see good cards. Nice. Our next card is the Lust card, which is also the Strength card. So this is the ultimate card of passion. She's riding the lion. She's just lying back, trusting the lion. She has her hand up in the air towards the sky, the horizon, tapping into this source of passion. She's got all these snakes above the horizon. And that's a big transformation. And the transformation of this card, you know, would happen through, it's like your wild side has to be embraced. And your creativity and your strong will, your sexuality, your passions, your dreams, they have to be expressed. And there's many ways to do it. It doesn't mean like overnight your whole life changes and your exterior world is changed and all of a sudden, you know, no. It's more like you have to start small by, you know, start writing that book you've said you want. start playing that instrument you said you wanted to do. Take up the sport that you've been missing. You know, if you miss dancing, get up and dance. You know, if you have been holding yourself back from your desires, it's time to stop doing that. That's how you heal. Boy, lots of fire. Oh my goodness, look at these cards. Okay, Nine of Swords is coming up. So we do have to definitely contend with some bad behavior or some previous wounds. This is cruelty, this card. It's Mars and Gemini, people who have been, or ourselves, people who have been two-faced, betrayals, verbal and mental abuse, you know, cheating and scandals and all kinds of shit. Nine of Swords is nasty. Nasty, usually abusive, sort of covert behavior comes out of the Nine of Swords. Something people are trying to hide. Again, I mentioned Mars and Aries, Mercury and Scorpio, both retrograde. Both signs are Mars. Both signs are like war and aggression, or they could be, and they're inverted. They're suppressed. They could be more covert or hidden because they're retrograde. So we do have to be careful. If it's advice for yourself, well, be aware of how you're being spoken to, and be aware of how you're speaking to others. Try to zip up your lip and don't gossip and don't spew hate everywhere and reactive stuff. And even I'm guilty of that after watching presidential debates. You know, it gets my blood boiling and I want to say stuff too. But really, I try to keep myself in check and stop after the first day. It's like, all right, you've said your piece, you've vented with the rest of the world. Now let's drop it, because it's not helpful to keep things going. But we see a lot of nasty behavior, like I said. So it's in the air. It's bigger than us. It's bigger than all of us. So just try to calm yourself with that. And if you do feel like you're personally in a situation where you're not being treated well, again, everything here to me, this whole reading seems to say it's time to liberate yourself from any of this toxic crap in your life and to heal by expressing yourself. Our next card, another 6, another air card. It's all air and fire today. Huh. All air and fire. All right. 6 of Swords says science. Mercury and Aquarius, detach. Look how cool and clean and organized this is. Look how detailed this is. And just like our 4 of Swords started off with swords meeting in the middle, we have now 6 swords in the middle instead of 4. And they're meeting at a cross. And it's a cool color. This means, you know, whatever's bothering you, if you don't feel free, if you feel suppressed, if you feel like people are mistreating you, you don't like the way they're talking, you don't like the way the interactions are going online or wherever, detach. Pull into yourself, express your art, your passion, your writing, your music, whatever, for yourself, and detach and be mentally cooler and a little more like rational, analytical if you're in active situations with difficult people. And our last card is okay. The last card is the Prince of Discs. This is usually a card that Crawley did not like, this guy. He's sort of self-indulgent. He wants everything for nothing. He can be greedy. He wants a lot of money. He wants life to be easy. He doesn't want to have to work too hard. He just wants things sort of given to him. Indulgent meaning, you know, like, that could be anything. Indulging in food, in addictions of any kind. He, you know, Crawley doesn't like him because he considers him to have like a weak moral character. you know, a slothful kind of outlook on life. So this could be somebody around you. This could be, you know, the culprit or whoever is you feel oppressed by or is not treating you well. This guy is, you know, usually you just don't want to, you don't want to do the work for him. You know, he needs to be held accountable. It doesn't have to be in some dramatic way. But, like, don't let him get away with things. Don't let him take you for granted. Don't let him, yeah, like, it's just somebody who could, like, just always wants a favor, or you're always picking up the slack and doing his work for him, finishing things up that he should do. Like, hold him accountable to his words, his duties, his payments, whatever it is, you know. And I'm just going to pull one more card. It's sort of a weird one to leave it off on when it's a court card. Okay, and our last card is the Magician. So what I'm really feeling from this whole reading, because it's all air and fire except that Prince of Discs, is I get a feeling that it's sort of a time to accept going on your own a little more. The Magician can be like an entrepreneur. And it's somebody who's got all the tools they need for themselves, and they can manifest and they can create and they can bring into fruition anything they want. But they start off doing it on their own, like self-employment, starting or launching a project that you've wanted to do, organizing something to help people, pursuing your talents. But it's the overall feeling I get with in combination with the chart and the cards is that there's a big rebalancing going on. It feels like maybe you can say it's karmic. There's old situations that are going to come to your mind that you're going to decide. The Judgment card, is this over, or do I want to open the gateway and bring up that truce and talk to this person? Do I want to confront, you know, bad behavior, the Nine of Swords and Ten of Wands? Do I pull out the legal card, you know, detach? Do I just detach and avoid and walk away, or do I confront and get some justice? You know, am I letting go or am I fighting? But the main thing I feel is more a sense of creating space for yourself in the midst of that. If you can walk away, if you can let go, if you can put some limits with things, if you can carve out your space so that you have the room to have those healing conversations, so that you have the room to do your creative work and to heal, to self-heal. That is the way I would use this new moon. So we will now choose some cards, one for every sign. Stay around for that video.